Hello, dear listener, and welcome to the Guitar Nerds podcast. I am your host, Joe Branton, joined this week by Matt Knight.
Hello, Mr. Joe.
Hello, Mr. Matt.
My microphone is now blending into my beard
Yes.
like one intricate beardophone.
I like it. A beardophone. That's pretty cool. It is a good mic stand. You have one of those big boom mic stands.
Boomy like my beard. I was quite pleased when I was at a wedding this weekend that I had the biggest beard in attendance.
Oh,
it's
really?
not. I mean, it's still got a long way to go.
Yeah. What are you going for? You're going to get like a big? Is it going to be like a big long sort of System of a Down thing? You're going to start plaiting it?
No,
is it going to be like that
Vikings
show? Or
I guess I should probably. Just, Mikey Demas has probably got to be the.
It's a big beard for rugged.
It's also
big,
just
manly
an excellent
beard.
It's just like beard. It's just an excellent beard, isn't it?
He's got the right colour hair for big beard.
I also want to Google
red beard.
Mikey Demas, no beard.
To see what he looks like without a beard. He did used to. Like in the early days, he had just, like a stubbly beard. I think he used to wear like a fedora instead of before he was wearing caps.
Yeah. Let's put skin dread. Early days. So just hope. Actually, I was going to say, I hope he has an accident with a razor, but that sounded really awful, so I won't say that. It's always the biggest fear when I get my hair cut. It's like, I hope they cut my beard properly. The hair, I'm like, whatever. I've had short hair, long hair.
You have your beard done at the barbers?
I do. Pro now, Joe. It's got to that level,
Wow.
Beard oil, blow dries.
Yeah.
It's all there.
Right, wow.
It's all there.
Amazing. Well, on that note, welcome, dear listener. Welcome to this week's episode of Beard Nerds.
I could nerd out on the beards.
We're going to be reviewing all of our favourite beards in rock and roll.
Billy Gibbons.
Yeah. The obvious choice.
Who else? Who else has a good beard in rock and roll?
It's
difficult. Once you've gone Billy Gibbons, you've sort of gone right in at the top then, haven't you?
Everything else is going to be small and inconsequential in comparison.
There was actually a Rolling Stone readers poll of your best beards in rock and roll. Rick Rubin.
Oh, that's a good one.
Scott Ian from Anthrax.
Who's that really buff guy who plays Music Man? Petrucci.
Oh, Petrucci. Oh, that is good beard. Jim
Morrison.
Morrison. Like late Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
George Harrison, Billy Gibbons. There's that period, what is it, John Lennon, 1970.
Oh, yeah.
Right at the end of the bit, it's just ridiculous beekeeper of a beard. I don't know. We'll see where we end up.
Quite.
On beard front. On other related, more guitar news, Joe. You played some more gigs this weekend.
Yes, I did. I played. I was up in the last little show that my band Polymath were doing for a while. We were playing in Bristol. I love playing Bristol. I love Bristol as a town. It's brilliant. I mean, I think if you like Brighton in the UK, dear listener, then most people like in Brighton love Bristol and vice versa.
They're pretty interchangeable.
Yeah, they're kindred spirits of towns, but
indeed.
But yes, we were playing Rough Trade in Bristol. Rough Trade venues are all very, very good. So always lovely to play the Bristol Rough Trade. It's the downside of playing the Bristol Rough Trade or any Rough Trade is that you're probably going to spend more money than you'll make in the shop. Because you get 30% off, you see. So I basically I go around looking for all the expensive stuff. Because at 30% off, there's no point like buying a £20 record that you can get anyway. You're not saving enough money. But find something, original pressings, limited edition stuff. If you're looking at records that are £100-ish, all of a sudden, that's not bad.
Did you pick up anything, Joe?
I did. I got... I'm trying to remember the name of it. So it was the last record that Pharoah Sanders recorded, and he recorded it with Floating Points and the London Symphony Orchestra all together to make this incredible jazz movement piece. So it's called Promises, the record.
Okay.
So all orchestrated by Floating Points, who does lots of electronic stuff and things like that. Ferris Sanders, obviously, like fantastic sax player, and then the London Symphony Orchestra. And the whole record is kind of one movement. It's like one motif that will evolve throughout. So Floating Points guided it with some synths and keyboards, very ambient. Symphony Orchestra are kind of doing their thing, and they literally let Ferris Sanders do whatever he wants. And so it's so interesting seeing what this guy does because he's such a creative saxophonist.
Okay.
And what he does on the record just, at one point he starts like just making noises into the saxophone, almost like singing a little melody into the saxophone without sort of playing any notes. So it's just so interesting. He's so creative. He's such a wonderful avant-garde jazz musician. So thoroughly worth checking out, dear listener. Very slow, very ambient. It's split into tracks, but it's just one movement, one piece of music, and you'll never hear it again because no one can play like Ferris Sanders. And Floating Points has said, "Well, we're not gonna do anything with it." He did one performance with one saxophonist. I can't remember the guy's name. Who Ferris Sanders had said this guy is the best thing. So Floating Points felt okay asking that other fella to replace Ferris Sanders for a show, but then this other saxophonist, whose name escapes me, decided to give up saxophone and now only plays wind instruments. So Floating Points is like, well, I can't do anything then. So.
It's almost like who was the name of that band or that musician that like made one copy of their record but then like permanently installed it in a car.
In a car, yeah.
So you could only listen to it if you owned the car. Or what was that fella's name? Martin Shkreli or whatever. He bought that Wu-Tang Clan album for $2 million and was like had to sign an NDA to basically say you can't play it or distribute it. It's sort of that. It's like, yeah, I've made an album with this amazing saxophonist player, but I've made sure he gives up playing saxophone after the record, so no one can use him. Ridiculous,
exactly. But anyway, so I played the show, which was great. We got to play with a band called Sans Foi or Sans Freud. It is a French name. They say Sans Freud, but they're French words. It says Sans Foi, but Sans Freud. Were playing. They're great because they're kind of a mix. They're a really interesting kind of mathy prog band, and they have their drummer and guitar player from a band called Choda Ku, who I have mentioned a few times on the podcast in the past. Dear listener, well worth checking out. Incredibly creative guitar player. He was doing a lot of stuff on the night where, because he plays a twin, his Fender twin that he loves, he brings everywhere.
Right.
And Telecaster with a strat neck. And he has a really simple pedal board. One of the things he has is one of those smaller Moog delay pedals, the black ones. With
the mini Fugas.
Yes, the mini Fugas. And sorry, he has, I said delay, I meant tremolo. He is the tremolo version of it.
Right, okay. Yeah.
He does this really interesting things where he'll pick a harmonic and then he'll move the tremolo speed to match the drums. So it'll be a really severe tremolo cut. He'll move it to match the drums and then he'll like speed it up so it goes out with the drums and like really fast into sort of almost ringwood territory, and then he'll bring it back. And he sort of just manipulates it using that one harmonic, which is great. And their bass player is a fellow called Ben Harris, who is the guitarist in a band called Ojive's Big Band. He is one of the most creative, interesting guitar players ever. So on bass, he's great as well, really tonally interesting. But on guitar, he's remarkable. A real sort of like a less solos, more creates noises. Really great sort of soundscapist on guitar.
Cool.
So yeah, it was good. But Matt, of course, it's the last show. We're going in the studio in a bit. It was the last show, so I've now got the opportunity to start my pedal board again.
Yes, it's what we all love.
Because when there's gigs, I've got to have a working pedal board with all my things available to me. I don't want to be taking that apart and putting that together all the time. But now there's nothing for ages, so I can do whatever I want.
What you need is like a Brian Eno circa David Bowie Berlin years kind of studio hand. Didn't produce the records, but basically turned up, sort of knew how to dial in some sounds, make some noises, and then basically add all the flourish to the records. Because I only found out recently that he co-wrote Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads, and all of the synth sounds were basically him. Obviously, all of the great sounds on like Heroes, David Bowie, like him. So he just sort of swans in. He's like, "Look, I've got this bit of gear or this pedal, and let's make this record, and then let's bugger off." So that's kind of what you need. You need to come in with all your sounds, all your toys.
That's it,
and go for there. Are you going to build a pedal board specific for the record, or are you just going to have loads of individual pedals and then build the pedal board based on the record that comes out?
Well, I think I'm going to build in advance. I want a fixed thing, and it is a round recording, but I want it to work live as well. And we're doing a lot of the tracking ourselves this time, the bulk of it, in fact, just because we'll go and get the drums done very properly. But all of our home setups are so good now. It feels like being pushed for time in a studio is not the smartest move at this point. So we're going to kind of do all our instruments mostly ourselves. So I was kind of trying to make a rig that would also work great running straight into, like a good rack compressor and then into an interface into the.
That was going to be my next question, because you don't really reamp, do you? So I'm guessing your effects, everything is like hard tracked to tape, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I'll run a DI ahead of it as well. So I'll run several tracks. I run like 4 tracks for bass normally when I record. So there'll be something coming straight out of the bass, straight into an LA2A style compressor into the desk. Then there'll be one that's going through my board, and then I'll have like a separate one that's maybe I'll take something off of the amplifier that I'm using, but I guess I won't be doing that this time. So we'll see. I think I'll keep it simple. But I know I messaged you earlier this week, and I was like, I think I'm going to get an ES5 and start using the GT1000 core, build a board up around that. But of course, I appreciate I'm very fickle with these things. Having
given up on that idea, that was. Looking roughly 3 days ago.
Well, I spent all that time, Matt, with the ME-90B. And now that I have unlocked and uncovered and worked it all out, and I know my way around it better, it's a perfect product for recording bass. It makes sense for it to be my main thing. So, dear listener, the ME-90B, and this made me want to get an ME-90, the guitar version as well. And you should, dear listener. It's fantastic, because I think Boss have made a bit of a mistake. I think they've overpacked them with good stuff. So the downside, obviously, here's supposed to be the downside. What they're doing with the ME-90 and the ME-90B, you get the aired AIRD, that tech. So that is their tip-top sounds. Those are the tones that you're getting on GT. But you're getting it at a fraction of the price. And the reason it's a fraction of the price is, well, you can't do as complicated stuff with signal paths, and it's all rotary controls, and you get less stuff. But actually, once you really get your head around everything, it is incredibly flexible, more flexible than I realized. So I'm ME-90B for me. I think I am going to keep an external compressor. I did find a way. Yes, Matt, you mentioned last time, you're absolutely right. I can apply the modulation section, can actually be made into a compressor. The compressors still, I'm so fussy with compressors. So it's not that they're not good compressors, it's that I'm fussy with compressors. So I'm going to keep the Thorpe Fat Channel just outside of the chain. But then everything else I'm going to use is going to be internal. And one thing I discovered when using Boss Tone Studio, which, great piece of software, dear listener, whether you're using Katana or GT or whatever, it actually gives you additional effects that aren't available on the ME-90 pedal itself. You've got extra bits and bobs. So I found that when I'm using the memory mode, so that's I've got 4 buttons down the front that can turn off on and off several things with one switch, dear listener, and then I've got a bank up and down, so I can have different banks of 4. One of the things I was most worried about moving to ME is the MS3 is so flexible. It allows me to do like double presses on pedals. So if I press the first, foot switch 1, that's my clean tone. But if I press it a second time, it adds an octave. And I loved being able to do that because it meant actually for the 4 pedals I had, I could have 8 sounds. It was, without having to mess around banking up and banking down. It made it very, very flexible. Now, I was concerned about losing that flexibility, but because there's a control foot switch on the ME-90B that I can sign to add and remove something additional, it meant that, that actually I still have exactly that flexibility. And there are a bunch of effects that I don't get on MS3 or GT, which is the synth. So this
because that was the one thing you said you were kind of missing, and a few people have said that before. Synth sounds in GT. I think there's probably because even Katana has got like a couple of basic monophonic synth sounds. I think it's because the technology in SY200 is far more powerful. So I think it would probably end up using a lot of processing power. Right. So I think, they're sort of kept separately. And obviously you've got the effects loop in there, so you could have that a separate SY2 or SY200, if you're going to use GT1000 at least. Yeah. The way that I've done it is GT1000 core with a MIDI setup. So then you've got MIDI control over both.
Right.
Or I did have it set for a while, which was EV1WL, MIDI out into GT1000 and then GT1000 into SY200. So the toe switch on the EV1 would actually control like turning the SY200 on and off. So it's almost like having it on like a wah pedal type thing.
That's very cool.
So you got a few options, out there, for sure.
Yeah, really good. So, and I'm really loving the expression pedal, being able to, assign that to everything from, like I demonstrated last week, dear listener, when I was assigning it to the delay oscillation, but also the wah sound off the bat is great. I actually realize I really like the lack of option paralysis. My wah sound it's just a wah sound. That's the wah you've got. I'm not flicking through 8 different versions of wah to try and work out which one's slightly better. You're fixed with that, and that's what you got. And I do like that.
It's funny because I've spent a lot of time. We talked about it last couple of weeks, so I won't dive into it for too long. But the H90 and just having that on a small pedalboard with a drive pedal, it just forces you to really learn that unit. And I think if sometimes you put everything on a pedal board straight away and then start involving it with MIDI switching and stuff, you don't really get to learn how to use it. So I think you have to dedicate yourself to a piece of gear to really find the sounds that you want out of it first before you start integrating it elsewhere. And I think you're right. It's having that lack of option paralysis, exactly what you want. I think it makes a big difference.
Definitely.
Because, you're not then sort of constantly diving through menus or this, that, and the other to make something work.
Yeah, I really like it. Now I've set up a few of my own patches. It's fantastic. I think I am going to integrate the separate what is the Bluetooth?
FS1WL is the 3-button foot switch.
No, sorry, the expression pedal.
Oh, EV1.
The EV1, yes. I'm going to introduce that as well so that I've got a second expression pedal for it.
Yeah.
I think I could do that. You said I could do that, right?
Yeah, I think there's an external expression pedal in. Yeah. There's no MIDI, is there?
No, there's no MIDI,
No. I'd have to read the manual. Yeah. Not got it in front of me.
No, exactly. But anyway, to finish up on the subject of me gigging and my pedal boards, ME-90B, I think it's going to be the thing for me. And for recording, perfect. Being able to just run straight out of I can run through the XLR out, get that cab sim on there, and it sounds great. It's a perfectly great sounding recording tone. I can't see what else I need. Guitar Nerds is sponsored by iZotope and Native Instruments, two companies who provide the bulk of the recording and editing tools used by Guitar Nerds. If you have a home studio or if you're thinking about getting into demo recording from home, then iZotope and Native Instruments provide the tools that you need to make premium quality recordings with ease and with virtually no equipment other than your guitar and laptop. iZotope make all the voice editing and audio repair tools that I use for the podcast each week, and Native Instruments Guitar Rig 7 is one of the best, most comprehensive collections of virtual effects and guitar amplifiers available anywhere. Use discount code NERDS10 on any product in the iZotope and Native Instruments catalogue for 10% off their fantastic range of tools.
Yeah, I guess the only thing with those is you can't have a parallel dry output for recording, but then because you've got USB, you can, in theory, just reamp with it. So I think you can reamp with it.
Yeah, I'll be running a DI box before I go into the ME-90B, so there will always be a completely clean signal recorded at any given time. So anything that I need to reamp later or I want to change, if I've got the performance down, I can. So
yeah, nice. Well, good luck on your recording quest, Joe. I'm sure we'll be talking about it all the time.
I'm sure we will. Now, Matt, what if, before we get into our main subject this week, by the way, dear listener, is the Reverend Double Agent, because we've got one. We're going to be giving it away soon. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about the giveaway that we've currently got going on as well. But before we do that, how's it going, Matt?
Yeah, good. I was happy this week because I won a prize. I never win. Everyone says they never win, but it feels like I never win. So I actually won a prize on Guitar Gear giveaway.
Unbelievable! You've been banging on about that site.
I sort of take it slow and steady. Ticket here, ticket there. Not like you, Joe. All in, balls to the wall, lose everything.
Yeah,
walk off.
I spent like buckets of money on it, like the first 2 weeks, and then I was like, I've dropped too much money now to carry on.
So Guitar Gear giveaway, 5 years old this year. If you don't know, Guitar Gear giveaway is a UK-based giveaway site. It is not a scam, as some people might assume straight away, because it seems too good to be true. But actually, it kind of is. It's a very, very good little system, because don't know, some people might have experienced a few years ago, people were like on Facebook, like, win this £2,000 guitar. All you need to do is rather than selling a product, I'm just going to sell 1,000 tickets at 20 quid, and I'm just going to pick a name out of a hat. So you're sort of like, you're gambling 20 quid to win, I don't know, Quad Cortex or something. So they basically do the same thing. They've always got about 20 or 30 different things you can win. They sell tickets. Tickets vary from 99p to like a tenner.
Well, they've got a Fender Tom DeLonge Starcaster on there at the moment.
They get stuff very
£1.82.
They get stuff very quickly, and then basically they sell a limited amount of tickets, and then they draw those tickets every few days. Mm-hmm. And some of the bigger prizes run for longer, etc. So if you're willing to drop a little bit, buy a few tickets, your odds are really good. Obviously, your odds are much better than the lottery. Winning the lottery is like 1 in 20, 30 million.
I mean, there's a PRS on here that's limited to 599 tickets. That's incredible odds.
Yeah. So if that ticket's, I don't know, $3.99, $4.99,
it's $1.99.
I think it's worth a go. Yeah. So anyway, they are currently giving a competition for a Fender 1964 pre-CBS Strat in Olympic white. This guitar would probably cost you £20,000, and you can buy just one ticket for $3.99.
Wow!
Maximum of 199 tickets per person. 199 times $4.99. $3.99 is what we're talking there. So you can't spend more than £794 and a penny on this. Realistic, when I think about it, I've got 5 or 6 tickets. That's a 1 in 999,000 chance, which I'm going, you know what? For the sake of like 20 quid, I'll give it a go.
Yeah. I should enter this. I'm an incredibly lucky person.
Yeah. In fact, we bought this legendary guitar. It was sold by Rich Tone Music for $26,999. So, for $399 for just one ticket, you could be lucky enough to win a guitar worth over £26,000. All original pickups, original volume tone pot, original 3-way switch, original Selma case, because Selma cases were the imported cases for Fenders in the 60s. Stamped 64 stamped neck and body, and very, very good condition. Very, very cool. Anyway, the other thing they do, which is very, very cool with a lot of these competitions, is you don't just get, it's not like a raffle book where you get sequential numbers. You get a bunch of random numbers from
good.
1 to 999,000. And some of those numbers are linked to a mystery prize.
Oh, really?
And some of those prizes are mystery prizes. Some of those prizes are website credit. And I won a mystery prize.
Ooh. What was it?
I won effectively a bit of a gift voucher. I'm sure that they won't mind me saying on the podcast, but we actually know who supplies all of their gear for the guitar gear giveaway, because obviously they have to buy it from somewhere. They phoned me and I was like, "Oh, do you know this person?" They said, "Yes, that's where we get all our gear from." And I was just like, "Oh, great. Well, I used to work with him." And they were like, "Oh, well, then we'll let him pick." And then I spoke to him and he's like, "I can't pick for you. That's impossible. You have everything." So we agreed on a kind of voucher amount. Right. And I spent the weekend going, what am I going to spend this voucher on? And you know what? I really effectively struggled to buy something for under 100 quid, which sounds like I'm incredibly snobbish and basically won't accept anything cheaper. And it amazed me at how many more guitars you can buy for 150 quid than you can guitar pedals. I was like, there are so many guitars for like 89, 99, 150 quid. And I'm like, guitar pedals go from like nothing to really bloody expensive really quickly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I spent a long time looking around and I settled on a pedal I don't think we really talked about when it came out. I don't remember talking about this line at all, probably because it was one of a million launches that they tend to have on a weekly basis. But ultimately ended up with the Electro Harmonics.
Yeah, I was going to say Electro Harmonics.
Pico Attack Decay.
What?
So the Pico is basically their mini series, or what they call the XO series. And the Attack Decay is a smaller version of the Attack Decay they released, I think, a couple of years ago, which was the modern version of a pedal they had back in the 70s. Effectively, they call it a tape reverse simulator, which is a terrible explanation, in my opinion.
Right.
It is effectively a volume swell pedal. It's a much more advanced version of something like a BOSS slow gear. So you have a attack level, which is how long it takes for the volume to swell in,
right,
and a decay level, which obviously the slow gear didn't have, of how long the sound takes to swell out or fade out. And that's quite cool because the decay control can effectively like suck the energy out of a note. It's almost like a noise gate, so it's clamping the volume down. So if you set really quick attack, really quick decay, you almost get these kind of like plucky banjo sounds out of it. Whereas if you have a really long attack and a really long decay, you get these kind of big kind of swells. And I just thought, you know what? It's something cool. It's something unique. I was like, there was loads of distortion pedals. I was thinking about Earthquaker plumes. And then I was like, I spent some of Friday basically A-being the H90 to the Thorpe bunker going, might as well just use the H90 for drives as well. Just like absolutely, don't get me wrong, love an analog drive pedal, but the H90 is really moving big strides in my book.
Wow.
And I just thought I'd go for something a bit different. Didn't want another delay. I was trying to think of something I might actually put on my pedal board. And I thought this would just work great for that kind of ambient thing. Great to have on your pedal board if you want to do some volume swells. That a volume pedal. It's really small, can sit under the pedal board. You kind of set and forget it, and away you go. But for years, probably 10 years, they've had a guy called Bill Rupert do all of their demos, and he just knows how to get great sounds out of them. So, the Pico Attack Decay.
A great choice, Matt. Just, for the man who has it all.
I know, that sounds horrible, doesn't it? I just didn't know what else to go for. And then there was things that I was like, I've kind of already owned that. And then I was like, oh, you could buy pickups or strings. I'm like, I'm not gonna waste this on strings. I've already got enough strings.
Yeah.
And it's do you know what? It's really, when you've been in the game as long as us, Joe, it's really difficult to pick a guitar pedal for basically £100. And then I was thinking about using it as a bit of a kind of, oh, maybe I'll split the difference and go for something else. But then I was just like, do I really want to spend £250 on another pedal you might not actually need?
Yeah.
So I thought, that'd be a little bit of fun. Actually, that whole Electro Harmonix Pico range,
I've never heard them called Pico before.
I think it was new. I think 2023. I think they were all announced towards the end of last year.
Because it's a DSP series. They're listed as New York City DSP. That's what they all say.
Maybe.
Powerhouse effects in Pico-sized pedals.
Because they basically did POG. They did the rerun tape delay, the tiny pitchfork, the Canyon Echo, the Attack Decay, the platform compressor limiter, the Oceans 3, the Triboro bridge.
They did the freeze, didn't they?
Yeah, the freeze, and then the overdrive distortion fuzz.
Actually,
freeze is still one of the best. I think their freeze is probably the best one in terms of sound. But I know a few people that have modded them for better foot switches because they've got a clicky foot switch.
What is wrong with a clicky foot switch?
Yeah, but a clicky foot switch, when you're freezing a sound, you sort of want a soft touch foot switch. Do you know what I mean? You want big old click in there.
That's fair.
Because I had the TC Electronic one. They did a small one recently, the Infinity Mini, and I just thought whatever it throws, it made it sound just a bit rubbish, to be honest. And
there's a freeze on the ME-90B.
There is.
That works with the expression pedal as well, which I thought was a great way of doing it.
Yes, yeah. So you can basically swell the pedal forward and it freezes the sound.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can just quickly move your foot to heel position. And then whilst it's in heel, move to your next note and then move back up. And it gives you a real natural sounding sort of infinite note thing. There's a bit of a knack to it, using it because it's very receptive to the heel and the toe.
Yeah.
But really great. After a little while of messing around with it, I actually thought that was a better way of doing a freeze than with a normal foot switch.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that you want, really, isn't it? You want to be able to freeze a sound, and then you kind of want to be able to blend into the next one. And the Electro Harmonix, I want to say Super Freeze, but it wasn't called Super Freeze. I think it was at the Super Ego. I think that allowed you to do that, if I remember rightly. There was a Super Ego and a Super Ego. Yeah, it had a latch and auto mode, and then you could layer things.
That's nice.
Yeah.
The Game Changer. Obviously.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, to be fair, actually, probably the Game Changer Plus is the best one. It's the best one, I would say. Because the Game Changer Plus, obviously, with that piano sustain pedal, does give the best sort of feeling of swelling into stuff, really.
Exactly. And because you've got a control for the ramp up and the decay as well, and being able to fine tune those, it's very, very good.
Yeah. So, won a prize. Going to wait for it to turn up.
Woo-hoo. Well done, Matt.
And then hopefully on Thursday, I will win a 1964 Strat, and that will be
Maybe you will.
excellent.
Maybe. Well, I'm not going to enter that one. The odds are too great.
Mm.
But there is a Fender Custom Shop 60s Telecaster Journeyman relic in 3-tone sunburst with a humbucker in the neck position that looks absolutely fantastic. Lovely, deep, dark rosewood neck, dear listener, parchment guard, bound, obviously 60s, but absolutely everything I want in a Telecaster. That looks awesome. And it's $199 per entry, limited to 2,699 entries. Only 1,000 tickets gone so far. So what happens if they don't sell all the tickets?
They
your odds
give it away.
better?
Your odds are just better. They just give it away anyway.
I am definitely entering this. Oh, damn, I've just told everyone.
Now everyone's going to enter. Yeah, so they basically say if they don't sell all the tickets, then there's what it
Better
is.
odds. Well, sweet, wonderful,
Indeed.
Amazing. That is rather good indeed.
It's funny you were talking about custom shop Strat there, Joe, before we go on to our sort of main topic.
Guitar Nerds is sponsored by Stringjoy Guitar Strings, the world's first true guitar string custom shop. The thing that I love most about Stringjoy is just their attention to detail, their dedication to making their strings the best in the world. And that's a labour-intensive task that they don't shy away from. Stringjoy are also innovative. They're always looking for new ways to make strings better. As guitar players, we've become so used to all the shortfalls of commercially available strings that we stopped even looking for them to be better, last longer, intonate well, easily. Stringjoy bring all of that to every pack of strings they make, and they're available almost as readily as any other generically made guitar string. Stringjoy strings are available at stringjoy.com and at 400 plus dealers across the globe. If your local store doesn't stock Stringjoy yet, ask them to.
I guess we should also say, because I don't know if anyone, me not being on the Facebook, whether anyone remember quite a few years ago, someone posting a particular custom shop Strat, saying, "Oh, this set looks like something that Matt Knight would want," and I was like, "It is," because I was the one that actually custom ordered it. And couldn't afford it. I think it came up at Coda at the time. Black over shell pink HSS Jason Smith Masterbuilt Relic 60s Strat. It took 2 years to turn up, arrived just before I left GAC, and then was declined in buying it. I was not allowed to buy said guitar, so I sold it to a customer the same day, thinking I would never see it again. But of course, we've talked about it on the podcast several times. Got a text from our friend Paul over at the Studio Rats, being like, "Oh, do you know what this guitar is?" And sent me a picture of that guitar. Then also sent me a picture of what they call the traveler's card. So this is basically an A4 piece of paper with all the specs and who ordered it and for what shop. And he was like, "And I've just seen your name on the spec sheet." So I phoned him instantly and was like, "Where is that?" And he's like, and I sort of, before he answered, I told him the whole story, and he's like, "Well, I own it. It's mine. I bought it off eBay." He's like, as soon as I saw it, he said it went up in the morning. He bought it like 30 minutes later.
Oh my God.
And he's like, "Look, I just buy stuff and sell it. So I've got products for videos." And I was like, "Oh." He was like, "I'll sell it to you for what I paid for it." And I was like, if it had literally been a month before, I would have done that massive reverb clear out. I wouldn't have already spent all the money on other stuff. I wouldn't have had to buy a new car. I would have been all over that. And then he's like, "Yeah, I've put it up on Facebook already, loads of interest." And then he texted me an hour after that and went, "Yeah, I've decided to keep it." So, I'm just hoping he's holding it on long enough that I win a 64 Strat. So forget about it, or win the lottery.
Gorgeous spec. I love color over color.
I basically wanted it to be a bit like the chocolates you get called Raspberry Ruffles, which I'm guessing are probably only relevant to people in the UK, which is basically a dark chocolate over raspberry coconut. I wanted it to look a bit like that, I wanted it to be like I wanted it to be a 60 Strat that someone got hold of in the 80s and modded to the point
is that
of
why you
like,
went HSS?
when HSS, it had Gilmore wiring in it,
Oh.
so you could coil split it, you could put the neck and the bridge together. It had Spursel locking tuners. It also had like a compound radius fretboard, so it went from 9 to 14, so it was like super flat at the top. I sort of spec'd all that. It turned up. It was absolutely amazing, and then couldn't buy it, so just quickly got rid of it to a customer.
Wow. Oh, what a shame. Well, I'm glad it's owned by at least someone we know now.
At least there's someone I know, so maybe I'll get a chance to play it at some point.
You can go over to see Paul at the studio.
I'm sure. Yeah, very, very cool. It's great to see that again. And great to see it still doing the rounds and people still like it, and loads of nice comments about it on YouTube as well. So it's been a good week for good guitars.
It has been a good week for good guitars. And speaking of good guitars, we received something earlier, or the end of last week, dear listener. We got one of these. If you're watching, dear listener, sorry if you're listening, dear listener, I'll describe it for you. It is a Reverend Double Agent in a finish called Chronic Blue, which is kind of a, I guess, like a Daphne sort of sonic blue, but then the plate is acrylic and is like a darker blue, like a turquoise blue, with a P90 in the neck and a humbucker in the bridge. Very guitar nerd's choice there. It with like a cream surround on the humbucker and obviously cream on the P90. You've got you got a little whammy bar bridge, so I don't like that to be hardtail, but and yeah, like gorgeous steeped up rosewood neck, lovely like cream binding to match the rest of the guitar. It's absolutely banging. We got it sent over from the wonderful, wonderful team at Merchant City Music, who, if you're in the UK, dear listener, are absolutely the place to go for Reverend guitars, because they always have such an amazing selection. They work quite closely with Ken and Reverend Guitars. They're always at all the guitar shows. They're lovely people, and they always have a bunch of stuff and loads of like shop exclusives as well. So there's always something different and interesting that they've managed to get hold of.
Just really. Carina body, as you said, it's got their own sort of Reverend pickups, Wilkinson trem, roasted maple neck, 25.5-inch scale, 12-inch radius, dual action truss rod, all of the good specs, locking tuners, Carina, like I said, roasted maple neck. It's got that bass contour control, all for what they list on their website as $10.99. Yeah. It's just crazy money.
In US dollars, that
$10.99 US dollars, which I think equates to basically almost, I think it's
800, 900 quid.
Yeah, something like that. It's just a lot of guitar.
It's a lot of guitar, and it's really, really, listener, is very, very good. It's super versatile. That bass contour control is excellent, coupled with the fact it's P90 in the neck, humbucker in the bridge, and you've got your whammy bar as well. There's nothing this guitar doesn't do. You should see, dear listener, the other color options that this comes in as well, because of course this Chronic Blue is very, very cool. Not me, but I can appreciate it objectively, that it is a great looking finish. My favorite that they do is called it doesn't show me now. Something. Oh yeah, there it says Outfield Ivy is what it's called now. In the Outfield Ivy version, you get a maple neck, you get a gold acrylic scratch plate, and a metallic sparkle, really deep British racing green, sort of Sherwood green style thing. That looks absolutely pucker. But they also do periwinkle burst, which is kind of a slightly blue silver burst with a pearloid plate. They do metallic silver freeze, which is very tasteful. That's like I don't know what color that is in Fender terms. It's kind of a bluish grey, but it's very lovely. And again, with a pearloid plate, They do a classic like midnight black with a black plate and a maple neck, roasted maple neck on that. And they do Italian purple, which is a very metallic,
Italian purple.
very
Wonder
deep.
why Italian purple. What are we missing there?
What do the Italians do that's purple?
I've just googled Italian purple, and another Reverend guitar's come up, and the first thing that comes up is garlic.
Oh, there you go.
Or tomatoes, or how you say purple in Italy. Italy in Italian. So I have no idea. I'm sure maybe it's some sort of car, Italian car, maybe.
Who knows?
Do like it though. Do you know it reminds me of Joe? It reminds me of Silk Cut, the cigarettes.
Right.
Their advertising, their marketing was always white on like purple, like that really deep purple color. So it takes me back to being a kid and Silk Cut cigarettes.
Silk Cut. Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's what my dad always used to smoke, right. And I always remember Silk Cut. It's amazing, really. 10 years old, and you can remember what cigarette advertising was when you're a kid. It just goes to show how the power of advertising. But yeah, it's interesting actually going back to that Reverend model, because you've got effectively the Double Agent, and then you've also got the Double Agent OG, which is the hardtail version with the 2 humbuckers, I think. Just trying to have a look. I did just have it up. Where's it gone? No, because the W is the one we've got, which I'm guessing means like whammy. And they do a hardtail version. But you just sort of get, we come back to Reverend every few months, and you just sort of forget how many cool guitars they have. I still want a Greg Koch signature. I think because they now do it in pink. I just think it looks so cool. Orchid pink.
I agree. Like having one back in the house here has just made me remember how great Reverend are, how versatile, and especially, I appreciate I bang on about this a lot, dear listener, but when I have to do lots of different demos for lots of different companies, actually something that kind of does anything pretty well is much better than having something that's very, very specific. Like my Grez Mendocino, I love, but I'm only ever going to pick that up, not the Bass 6, the regular one. I'm only ever going to pick that up to play my stuff because it's a hollow body,
very specific
jazz style guitar that's strung up with flat wounds. Whereas, this is the P90 and humbucker thing. The fact that I've got the whammy there, that bass contour control means that you've got everything from thick Les Paul tones to twangy teletones.
Yeah.
All in one. They're very good. I really feel like maybe I should be. Why don't I own a Reverend guitar of my own? So they do such a lot now. There must be 40, 50 guitars in their standard, maybe more.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think I guess like any good guitar company have a few kind of models or shapes and then variations on said shape, but they also have a range of really good colours. I think, as we've said before, one of the few brands that is only, $1,000 to £1,200 and is just constantly consistent out of the box. There's quite a few on here that I definitely have. We don't talk enough, I think, about the Pete Anderson Eastsider S. I remember talking to Ken about it when we had him on before.
That's their telly style one.
That's their telly style, but you've got 2 single coils. You've got a single coil in the middle and a trem, basically, which is very, very cool. I also really, really like the idea of having the Billy Corgan Turs. That's their sort of A to A, the short scale one, just for something different. If you kind of want to muck around and you want a different sound, I kind of like the idea of having something like that.
Yeah.
Because they've effectively got the standard, the Turs, and then also the Z1, which is the big drop tune one.
Yeah, he's got so many models now.
Yeah, but I like that. Yeah, the Turs is basically what scale length is it? 21.5.
Really? I didn't realize it was that short.
Yeah, still with 12-inch radius, still with 10 to 46s. But he said The terz is a 19th century instrument tuned to a minor third, so G, C, F, A sharp, D, G. I'm guessing that is what the terz is tuned to, although I think quite often they tune it to A. But yeah, I think that's really cool. If I was going to buy another guitar now, I'd definitely be tempted to go for something a bit different.
Yeah,
I think,
not?
and I think that's quite cool. Although a bit more pricey, but it's a signature one. You've obviously got that wedge, that sort of Firebird style center wedge in the middle, and realistically, they're going to make a few. They're going to make less of the mini ones. It's probably going to push the cost up a little bit more. If you're making lots of something, you can generally charge a little bit less.
Yeah, of course.
But very, very cool. They've got some great guitars.
I don't know what I'd pick for me. I really like the Charger shape, which is kind of their sort of, it's almost like a fat, slightly offset Telecaster shape. I think that's really cool. They do that with like dual P90. It has like, a Gibson style bridge, but then a Tele style control plate. That's very, very cool. I really like they do something that's a bit more Tele-esque, the Buckshot, which has like a Gretsch style pickup in the neck position, and then a Tele pickup in the bridge, but without with the Gibson style tailpiece. So the Tele pickup is exposed. It doesn't have that the big bridge piece that you get with a Telecaster. They just do so much stuff. I've always liked the Reeves Gabriel signatures.
Hasn't that got the?
He has loads.
Didn't they have one that's got like a Sustainiac in it, or did I imagine that?
Maybe.
I thought I remember. Maybe I just remember the pickup. I'm sure I remember one with.
Oh yes, it looks like he does. He does the Reeves Gabriel's RG Sus, which is done in that same sort of fat offset Tele style shape, dear listener.
And then they've got the dirt bike, which is, I think, like the Sensei model.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And
which is just one pickup.
The Space Hawk, I think, is the one. The Space Hawk is available in a black sparkle finish with a 3-piece scratch plate and a Bigsby.
That is cool.
Yeah.
But actually, I think they've got a lot on the bass side of things, a lot more than the last time we spoke about it. So it seems like a lot more models now and a much wider range of tones, but really going for lots of versatility in terms of sound options. Their Macali 4, I mean, you've got 2 massive pickups on there. Now I'm trying to see which ones they've actually put in. So thick brick bridge and split brick neck. You've got some big old humbuckers on that one.
Yeah, they're really great. The Macali 5s are especially popular as a 5-string for people that want a 5-string but still want kind of a quirky classic look. I really like that stuff. The thing that's not my taste with the Reverend basses is those pickups, that they use a lot of these big, very modern looking pickups, and everything else about the guitars is classic. And I certainly find with the guitars, it's just looking at that Buckshot, cool Gretsch looking pickup in the neck, cool Tele pickup, it's classic. Whereas I come onto basses, I get the same sort of classic looks, but then these big Music Man pickups in the middle that always seem a little bit off with the design. I'd get a Dub King, which, dear listener, is their like hollow body single cut short scale bass, like big body, like jazz box style thing. I love it, but it's got the same 2 pickups that are in the Macali. So a Music Man pickup always looks a bit odd in there. But that's not to say those aren't the only options. The bass that I love the most that they do is the Triad. It's kind of a 3 pickup jazz bass. With a sort of a 5-way like Strat pickup selector, which is really interesting. And they do that in their Periwinkle burst, which is kind of their silver burst. So it's very cool. But
nice.
Really, really strong range of stuff from Reverend. And I actually, we haven't mentioned, did we mention? I can't remember if we mentioned it. We're going to be giving this Reverend guitar away, dear listener. That's coming up as soon as we've done the current giveaway. As soon as we've finished that, Matt and me are going to be announcing this is the last week for you to win the listener built vintage Pro Shop guitar. All you've got to do, dear listener, is name the guitar. Enter as many times as you want. You can find it on Patreon, on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Enter the competition, come up with a name, and then Matt and we're nailing it down to our top 10, top 20. We're going to announce those probably later this week, what our top 10, top 20 are. And then we're going to do a live stream to pick the winner. So,
happy
yes,
days.
Very worthwhile entering that. I was just going to have a little look and see what names,
you've got so many names to go in and manually add to an Excel spreadsheet, Joe.
I know. Someone has suggested Mildred Pierce. I don't know if he's trying to tag someone or if that's the name of the guitar, but I can get behind that.
I hope they win, and I hope Mildred Pierce is a real person.
I like this. A Chlorine Liege is a suggestion. There's some good ones.
Like I said, I think we like the idea of ones that weren't green or ones that had a story.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Now, we are coming up to the end of this week's episode of the Guitar Nerds podcast, dear listener. I realised that we haven't actually got round to doing our sound sample of the week. So we're probably going to do that next week now, and we'll talk about it a bit in our Patreon. The pedal that I want you to get excited about is this that I'm holding in my hand if you're watching, dear listener. It's the Summer School Electronics. It's their new class reunion, which is a part 90s Big Muff blended with one of their other pedals, which it was called the Trash Panda, which kind of has a more Tube Screamer like vibe. So you've got a blend between those two, individual controls for both, and then a couple of different clipping options for both, which is really handy for sort of making a blend of the two sounds. This pedal sounds just as good on bass as it does guitar, and it does a billion things. So we're gonna take a closer look at that next week, I imagine. But
nice.
Yes, indeed. Well, before we go, I do want to thank our top-tier Patreon supporters. Matt and I, dear listener, are going to be heading over onto Patreon, patreon.com/Guitar Nerds. We record an extra episode there every week. If you want to join us, you can sign up. There are several tiers of membership. The top tier get my personal thanks at the end of every episode because they're awesome and they help Matt and I continue to do this after 11 years. So I would like to thank Stefan Carlson, Nicholas Strom, Rocket Rob Patterson, Phil Sadler, Marcus Deluxe, Suresh, Dorsonic Pickups, Rob Witherden, Anton Fryant, Barry Gresbick, Steve Davis, John Conaway, Yogi the guitarist, Ty Allen, Kyle Harris, Sean Hughes, Andy Hoffler, Eric Hemmer, Jeffrey Wax, Dan Pilver, Brian Einsler, Dylan Griffiths, Mark Hizal Kadawaki, Eric File, Peter Pesce, Chris Franklin, Andy Manley, Joe Puttick, Blake Wyland, Phil Radomski, Dave Lee, Ross Edwards, Jason Wharton, James Dorr, Jake Gray, Derek Rich, Scott Kennedy, Steve Merkel, Abe Matthews, Christopher Losef, Stephen Bork, Robin Smith, Kytopia the Band, Andy McKenzie, Brad Page, Rob Nordvik, Scott O'Brien, and of course, Moog Gravit. There you go, dear listener. There you go. So, yes, do join us over on the Patreon. Matt and I are going to be we're probably going to talk about the IK Tone X1.
Might as well get in there at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be talking about you modding your Albert Lee, probably. And we might actually take a little preemptive look at this Summer School Electronics class reunion as well. So do join us there, dear listener, and we'll be back next week with more of this guitar nerdery. Farewell.
Goodbye.